May soybeans were sharply higher, up 18 cents. I think in days past I might not have called that sharply higher, but it is one of the bigger gains of the year, so we're going to go with it. And that's all coming in front of Friday's USDA WASDE report. And while this isn't normally a big WASDE report, we're not going to see any news on U.S. production. There might be some slight tweaks on the demand side of the U.S. balance sheet. This year it is a bit more of a bigger deal because there's some question marks about the South American production, and that will certainly get updated on this WASDE report. More on that in a second. The impressive thing about being up 18 cents in the May beans today is that it is our first close over the 20-day moving average that we've seen since November 22nd of 23 of last year. We've been in an extended bear market here for soybeans, really accelerating since the first of the year, but just recently we've started to try to carve out a little bit of a bottom and potentially a little bit of a corrective bounce. We'll see how that plays out. We also had our weekly export sales here as we normally do on Thursday, and they were pretty good. For the first time in a little while, they were above the average trade expectations, or the range of trade expectations even. The trade was looking for between 175 and 600,000 metric tons, and that number came in just above that high end at 614,000 metric tons. That's significant for a couple of reasons. One, we've been on a string of some really poor export sales weeks at a time of year where we would expect to see them to be really very good before that South American crop is ready and they, Brazil in particular, take over on the global stage and take over the market share. So it's been disappointing that the sales have been coming less than normal, less than expected. In fact, 2 weeks ago, we had a marketing year low, just around 100,000 metric tons. Last week was only about 160. So a 600 plus is a good number. It's still not a great number, but it is a good number. And as we get into that WASDE report tomorrow, that is, well, it has bearing on that because the big question mark for that is the Brazilian soybean production. The trade for a long time has felt like the USDA is using a number that's way too high at 156 million metric tons. The trade average guesses are between 148 and 156, but the average guess is 152. And if the USDA does lower that soybean production in Brazil, that really begs the question, what happens with the rest of the balance sheet? Because Brazil doesn't really keep an ending stock at the end of their growing season or at the end of the marketing year like we do. They basically run themselves into zero, meaning every bushel in production has a home on the demand side of the balance sheet. And in this case, if they were to lower their production, say 4 million metric tons, that would come from exports, very, very likely. And then the question is, where does that demand go to? Does it either A, get displaced and that export demand moves to another country, i.e. the United States, the other very large soybean exporter in the world, or does it come off of somebody else's demand, i.e. China, where their demand just could be a bit less month over month? So how the USDA handles that number is going to be paramount as far as what the trade reaction is going to be to this report, and if they change that South American or that Brazilian soybean production number in the first place. So lots to be paying attention to here for the soybeans. Stay tuned, everybody. In the meantime, you stay safe.